The morning mist covered the Korean mountains like a thick blanket when Captain Vextar and his alien crew first heard the sounds that would change everything. They had been hiding in their invisible ship for 3 months, watching what they thought was a dead world. The sounds started as low rumbles that shook the trees and made the ground vibrate. Lieutenant Zephyrin pressed his long fingers against the observation window and watched the forest below with growing fear. The sounds were getting louder and more frequent each day. At first they thought it might be earthquakes or volcanic activity, but the patterns were too regular, too organized. Something was making these noises on purpose. Science Officer Kaitara ran her scanner over the forest canopy again and again. The readings showed massive movements in the trees. Things were moving fast through the dense woods, faster than any animal should be able to move. The heat signatures were scattered across miles of forest, but they moved together like they were connected somehow. The alien team had traveled across the galaxy, studying new worlds for the Galactic Federation. They had seen many strange creatures on different planets, but nothing like this. The sounds that came from the Korean forest were unlike anything in their database. Thunderous roars that echoed through the valleys, sharp, explosive crashes that made their ship shake. Even though it was floating high above the trees, Captain Vextar had gray skin and 4 arms that he used to operate multiple controls at once. His species was known for being calm and logical, but even he felt fear when the forest sounds reached their peak. The roars were so loud and so angry that his crew started wearing ear protection during their observation shifts. Down in the forest below, Sergeant Dong-soo crouched behind a fallen log with his team of Korean Special Forces soldiers. They were running their monthly training exercise in the same area they had used for years. The mountains provided perfect terrain for practicing combat tactics and testing new equipment. Private Nari adjusted her helmet and checked her weapon for the 3rd time that morning. She was one of the best soldiers in the unit and took every training exercise seriously. Her job was to provide covering fire for her teammates while they practiced moving through enemy territory. The morning exercises always started before sunrise, when the forest was quiet and still. The alien ship floated silently above them, completely invisible to human eyes. The advanced cloaking technology made it impossible to detect even with the most sophisticated military equipment. The aliens watched every move the human soldiers made, but they had no idea what they were really seeing. When Dong-soo gave the signal to begin the exercise, his team spread out through the forest in perfect formation. Each soldier knew exactly where to go and what to do. Private Kyung-ho moved to the left flank, while Corporal Min-ho took position on the right. They had practiced these movements hundreds of times until they could do them in complete darkness. Aliens above saw dark shapes moving through the trees with incredible speed and coordination. The heat signatures showed that these creatures were working together in ways that seemed almost impossible. Lieutenant Zephyrin made notes about pack-hunting behavior while Science Officer Kaitara tried to calculate how many creatures were moving through the forest. The first explosion came without warning. A training grenade detonated in a clearing 50 meters away from the alien observation post. The sound was deafening and sent shockwaves through the forest canopy. Birds flew away in panic, and small animals scattered in all directions. Captain Vextar jumped back from the controls and his 4 arms flailed in surprise. The explosion was so close that their ship rocked slightly, even though it was protected by energy shields. The crew had never experienced anything like this in all their years of peaceful exploration. More explosions followed as the human soldiers continued their training exercise. Each blast sent tremors through the ground and filled the air with smoke and debris. The aliens thought they were watching a massive battle between territorial beasts fighting for control of the forest. Private Sujin activated her radio equipment and began coordinating with other teams positioned throughout the mountains. Her voice crackled through the communication system as she reported positions and movements to the command center miles away. The aliens heard these transmissions, but their universal translator could not understand human military codes, the sounds that terrified the aliens most were the mechanical roars that came from human vehicles and helicopters moving through the forest. Heavy trucks carrying supplies and equipment made deep rumbling noises as they navigated the rough mountain roads. Their engines echoed through the valleys and sounded like enormous beasts calling to each other. A military helicopter flew overhead with its rotors chopping through the air in steady rhythm. The aliens had never seen anything like it and thought it was some kind of flying predator. The sound of the rotors mixed with the engine noise created a terrifying symphony that made their ship vibrate. Science Officer Kaitara recorded everything on her advanced equipment. She documented each sound and tried to analyze the patterns, but nothing made sense according to their scientific understanding. The creatures seemed to be using tools and technology, but that should be impossible for such primitive beasts. The human soldiers moved through their training scenarios with practiced efficiency. They cleared buildings, practiced rescue operations, and tested their communication systems. All of this activity created a constant stream of noise that the aliens interpreted as signs of extremely aggressive and intelligent monsters. Lieutenant Zephron suggested that these creatures might be the reason why their long-range scans had detected no signs of intelligent life on the planet. Perhaps these beasts had destroyed any civilizations that might have existed. The evidence seemed to support this theory, as the sounds suggested creatures capable of incredible destruction. As the morning progressed, the training exercise intensified. The human soldiers used smoke grenades to create cover while they practiced advanced tactical maneuvers. The smoke drifted up through the forest canopy and partially obscured the alien ship, even though it was invisible. Private Nari led her squad through a simulated urban combat scenario using abandoned buildings that had been constructed specifically for training purposes. The concrete structures amplified every sound and made the exercises even more realistic. The gunfire from blank ammunition echoed off the walls and sounded like continuous roaring. The aliens watched in fascination and terror as the human soldiers demonstrated perfect teamwork and coordination. Each movement was precise and purposeful, showing levels of intelligence that seemed impossible for what they thought were wild animals. The creatures appeared to be communicating through complex gestures and signals. Captain Vexstar made the decision to extend their observation mission by another month. The Federation needed to know more about these dangerous creatures before any other ships arrived in the system. The sounds from the forest suggested that this world was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. As the sun climbed higher, the training exercise reached its peak intensity. The combined sounds of explosions, gunfire, helicopter rotors, and heavy machinery created a terrifying symphony that convinced the aliens they were witnessing the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The human soldiers completed their morning exercises and prepared to return to base, completely unaware that alien eyes were watching their every move. The misunderstanding that would change both species forever was just beginning to take shape in the quiet Korean mountains. The decision to capture one of the monsters came after Captain Vexstar watched the creatures for another week. The alien crew had never seen such organized and intelligent behavior from what they thought were wild beasts. The way these creatures moved together and seemed to communicate made them both fascinating and terrifying. Lieutenant Zephron prepared the capture equipment while Science Officer Kaitara calibrated the stun weapons. They had captured dangerous animals on other worlds before, but never anything that showed such complex behavior patterns. The energy nets were designed to hold creatures 10 times stronger than anything they had encountered. The aliens chose their target carefully during the next human training exercise. Corporal Minho was checking his equipment near a small clearing when the alien ship moved silently into position above him. He knelt beside his backpack, completely unaware that 4 alien eyes were watching his every movement. The blue stun beam shot down from the invisible ship and struck Minho directly in the chest. The energy was designed to paralyze large predators instantly, but instead of collapsing like an animal, Minho immediately rolled behind a nearby tree. His military training kicked in automatically as he shouted warnings to his teammates. Sergeant Dong-Soo heard the shout and saw the strange blue light that had appeared from nowhere. His years of combat experience told him they were under attack by an unknown enemy. Quickly organized his squad into defensive positions while trying to locate the source of the mysterious weapon. The aliens watched in amazement as the creature they had just stunned began coordinating a complex military response instead of behaving like a wounded animal. Minho was calling out numbers and directions to his teammates in what sounded like a sophisticated communication system. Private Nari took cover behind a boulder and began scanning the forest canopy with her rifle scope. She had never seen a weapon that fired blue energy beams, but her training taught her to adapt quickly to any situation. The enemy was somewhere above them using technology she did not recognize. The alien crew realized they had made a serious mistake. When they saw how the creatures responded to their attack instead of panicking or fleeing like animals, these beings immediately formed a defensive perimeter and began systematic counterattack procedures. Their behavior was more organized than many civilized species the aliens had encountered. Lieutenant Zephron fired another stun beam at Private Kyung-ho, who was trying to flank their position, but Kyung-ho saw the blue light coming and dove behind a fallen log before the beam could hit him. He immediately began moving through the underbrush using advanced tactical techniques that impressed even the watching alien science. Officer Kaitara frantically adjusted her scanner readings as she realized these creatures were using military strategy. The way they moved and communicated suggested intelligence levels that should be impossible for primitive beasts. Their coordination was better than most galactic military units. The firefight intensified as more human soldiers joined the battle. Private Sujin provided covering fire while her teammates maneuvered for better positions. The sound of their weapons mixed with shouted commands created a symphony of organized warfare that the aliens had never heard before. Captain Vexstar watched through the main viewer as the creatures below demonstrated tactics that would be impressive even among advanced civilizations. The way they used terrain and coordinated their movements showed planning abilities that challenged everything the aliens thought they knew about this world. The moment that changed everything came when Private Nari found herself low on ammunition during the intense firefight. She had been providing covering fire for her teammates, but her magazine was almost empty. The training exercise had not prepared them for such a prolonged engagement. Nari ducked behind her cover and shouted the single word that would transform the understanding of both species forever. She called out clearly and loudly, so her teammates could hear her above the noise of battle. The word echoed through the forest and reached the sensitive hearing equipment of the alien ship. Reload. The word hit the alien crew like a thunderbolt. Lieutenant Zephron stopped firing his stunned weapon and stared at the translation display in disbelief. Science Officer Kaitara checked her universal translator 3 times to make sure it was working correctly. The creatures below were not just making animal sounds, they were speaking in a complex language. Captain Vexstar felt his 4 hearts racing as he realized the implications of what they had just heard. These were not monsters or beasts, they were intelligent beings with their own language and military organization. The aliens had been watching a civilized species conducting training exercises, not wild animals fighting for territory. The human soldiers continued their tactical response, completely unaware that their single word had revolutionized alien understanding of their species. Sergeant Dong-Su coordinated his team movements while Private Minho worked to identify the source of the mysterious blue energy attacks. The aliens quickly stopped their attack and began emergency protocols for first contact with an unknown intelligent species. Captain Vexstar realized that they had accidentally started a war with beings who might be the dominant life form on this planet. The situation required immediate diplomatic intervention. Private Kyung-ho managed to get close enough to the alien position to throw a smoke grenade in their direction. The white smoke began drifting up through the trees and would soon reach the invisible alien ship. The humans were adapting their tactics to fight an enemy they could not see. Science Officer Kaitara began analyzing all the recordings they had made over the past months. Every sound they had interpreted as monster roars now needed to be re-examined as possible language or communication. The thunderous noises might have been mechanical sounds from their technology. The alien crew watched as the human soldiers demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rivaled any species in the Galactic Federation. They were adapting to fight an invisible enemy using tactics and equipment that showed remarkable ingenuity and technological advancement. Lieutenant Zephron suggested they try to communicate with the creatures using their universal translator, but Captain Vexstar hesitated. The first contact protocols were designed for peaceful meetings, not battlefield encounters where both sides were already shooting at each other. Smoke from the human grenade began to interfere with the alien cloaking system, making their ship partially visible to the soldiers. Below, Private Nari was the first to spot the strange shimmer in the air above the trees. She pointed it out to her teammates, who immediately began focusing their fire on the mysterious target. The aliens realized they had no choice but to attempt communication before the situation escalated further. Captain Vexstar activated the external communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies, using their universal translator to convert their words into what they hoped was the local language. The mechanical voice that suddenly spoke Korean from the empty air above them made every human soldier freeze in surprise. Sergeant Dong-Soo had trained for many situations, but alien contact was not covered in any military manual. The voice was clearly artificial, but the words were unmistakably an attempt at communication. The forest fell silent except for the strange alien voice trying to form Korean words. The misunderstanding that had brought two species to the brink of war was finally beginning to unravel, as both sides realized they were facing something completely different from what they had expected. The mechanical voice speaking broken Korean from the empty air above them made every human soldier question their understanding of reality. Sergeant Dong-Soo had seen many strange things during his military career, but invisible enemies who spoke through machines was beyond anything in his experience. Captain Vexstar struggled with the universal translator as he tried to form words in the local language. The system was designed for peaceful first contact situations, not battlefield communications, where both sides were already frightened and confused. His forearms worked multiple controls as he attempted to broadcast a message of peace. The alien words came out choppy and strange, but the meaning was clear enough for the human soldiers to understand. Someone or something was asking them to stop fighting and talk instead. Private Nari kept her weapon trained on the shimmer in the air, while her teammates spread out to cover all possible escape routes. Lieutenant Zephyrin monitored the human responses through their communication systems and was amazed by the discipline these beings showed even in the face of impossible technology. They maintained military formation and continued following their chain of command structure. Science Officer Kaitara began immediate analysis of the human language using the words they had captured during the firefight. The universal translator was learning quickly, but the complexity of Korean grammar and military terminology made accurate communication difficult. Sergeant Dong-Soo made the decision that would change history for both species. He ordered his team to hold their fire while he attempted to establish communication with the unknown entity. His military training included basic protocols for dealing with foreign contacts, though nothing had prepared him for this situation. The first face-to-face meeting took place in a small clearing where both sides could see each other clearly. Captain Vexstar decided to deactivate the cloaking system and reveal their ship to the humans. The massive vessel appeared slowly as the invisibility field faded away. Lieutenant Hyo-jun volunteered to represent the human team in the first contact meeting. His knowledge of foreign languages and diplomatic procedures made him the logical choice, even though no training could have prepared him for meeting actual aliens. The alien ship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was smooth and silver with no visible engines or weapons. The design was clearly advanced, but also strangely beautiful in ways that human engineering had never achieved. The sight of it floating above the trees filled the soldiers with wonder and fear. Science Officer Kaitara stepped out of the ship using a personal gravity device that allowed her to float down to the ground. Her appearance was shocking to the human soldiers. She had pale blue skin, large black eyes, and long thin limbs that moved with graceful precision. The moment when human and alien first stood face to face was awkward and tense. Both sides were nervous and uncertain about how to proceed. Lieutenant Hyo-jun extended his hand in the universal human gesture of greeting, while Kaitara tried to mimic the movement with her own longer fingers. Communication improved rapidly as the universal translator learned more Korean words from the conversation. The aliens explained that they were explorers from a peaceful federation of worlds who had been studying Earth from a distance for several months. The massive misunderstanding began to unravel as both sides shared their perspectives. The aliens had been observing human military exercises, but had interpreted the sounds and activities as evidence of dangerous monsters the humans learned that their planet had been under alien surveillance without their knowledge. Corporal Min-ho, who had been stunned in the initial encounter, recovered quickly and found himself fascinated by the alien technology. His engineering background helped him understand some of their equipment, while his military training made him appreciate the advanced materials and design. Private Sujin used her communications expertise to help establish better dialogue between the two species. Her experience with radio systems and electronic equipment proved invaluable in setting up translation protocols that both sides could understand. The revelation that Earth was home to intelligent life came as a complete shock to the alien crew. They had been prepared to study primitive animals, but instead had discovered a species with advanced technology and sophisticated military organization. Captain Vexstar explained that their long-range scans had detected no signs of civilization on Earth because human technology operated on different principles than what they were looking for. The aliens used energy signatures and quantum communications, while humans relied on electromagnetic systems. The human soldiers struggled to accept that beings from other worlds had been watching them for months without their knowledge. The implications were staggering, both for military security and for humanity understanding of its place in the universe. Lieutenant Zephron was particularly impressed by human tactical abilities and asked detailed questions about their military organization. The aliens came from peaceful worlds where conflict was rare, and they had never seen such sophisticated warfare techniques. Science Officer Kaitara began recording everything about human culture and technology for her reports back to the Galactic Federation. The discovery of a new intelligent species was the most important event in her scientific career. The aliens explained that they had been afraid to make contact because they thought humans were dangerous predators who might attack without provocation. The sounds of military exercises had convinced them that Earth was populated by aggressive monsters. Private Nari found herself laughing at the absurdity of the situation. The aliens had been terrified of human soldiers during training exercises, while the humans had been completely unaware that they were being watched by beings from another world. The cultural exchange began immediately as both sides tried to understand each other better. The aliens were fascinated by human concepts of honor, duty, and sacrifice, while the humans were amazed by the peaceful nature of galactic civilization. Sergeant Dong-Su realized that this encounter had implications far beyond his military unit. First contact with an alien species was a matter of global importance that would need to be reported to the highest levels of government and military command. The aliens shared images of their homeworlds and other species they had encountered throughout the galaxy. The diversity of life in the universe was overwhelming to the human soldiers, who had never imagined such possibilities. As the initial meeting continued, both sides began to develop genuine respect for each other. The aliens appreciated human adaptability and tactical thinking, while the humans admired alien technology and peaceful philosophy. The truth that emerged from their first contact was that both species had much to learn from each other. The aliens possessed advanced technology and scientific knowledge, while humans had developed remarkable skills in organization, leadership, and strategic thinking. The forest clearing where they met became the site of the most important diplomatic encounter in human history, as two completely different species began to understand that they were not enemies but potential allies in a vast and complex universe. The friendship between the two species grew stronger as they spent more time together. In the Korean forest, both the human soldiers and the alien crew discovered that they had much more in common than they had initially realized. Despite coming from completely different worlds, Private Nari found herself in deep conversation with Lieutenant Zephron about military tactics and strategy. The alien officer was fascinated by human approaches to warfare, while Nari was amazed by the peaceful methods that alien civilizations used to resolve conflicts. The exchange of food became one of the most enjoyable parts of their cultural interaction. The Korean soldiers shared their military rations with the aliens, who had never experienced such complex and interesting flavors. Their own food was nutritious but bland compared to human cuisine. Science Officer Kaitara was particularly impressed by the spicy Korean dishes that the soldiers carried in their field packs. Her species had taste Sensors that could detect thousands of different chemical compounds, but human food combined flavors in ways that were completely new to her captain. Vexstar demonstrated alien medical technology by healing the minor injuries that the human soldiers had sustained during their initial firefight. The advanced medical devices could repair tissue damage in just minutes using techniques that seemed like magic too. Human-eyed Sergeant Dong-Su watched in amazement as a small device closed a cut on his arm without leaving any scar. The alien medical technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities, but the aliens were equally impressed by human field medicine and emergency treatment methods. The aliens learned about human military history and were shocked by the constant warfare that had shaped human civilization throughout their galactic travels. They had never encountered a species that had developed such sophisticated methods of organized conflict, Lieutenant Hyojun explained. The concept of military honor and the bonds that formed between soldiers who fought together. The aliens had difficulty understanding why humans would risk their lives for abstract concepts like duty and loyalty, but they could see the strength. These beliefs provided. Private Kyung-ho spent hours with the alien engineer Kixrun comparing human and alien technology. While alien devices were clearly more advanced, human engineering showed remarkable creativity and practical problem-solving abilities. The aliens were particularly impressed by human tools and weapons, which were designed for maximum efficiency and reliability under harsh conditions. Their own technology was more sophisticated, but human equipment was built to function in extreme environments. Corporal Minho discovered that alien material science was far ahead of human capabilities, but human manufacturing techniques were often more practical and cost-effective. The aliens could create amazing materials, but humans knew how to mass-produce reliable equipment. The cultural exchange revealed fundamental differences in how the two species approached problems. Aliens relied on advanced technology and peaceful negotiation, while humans used adaptability and tactical thinking to overcome obstacles. Private Sujin taught the aliens about human communication systems and was amazed to learn that galactic civilizations used quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across vast distances. The technology was beyond human understanding, but the principles were fascinating. The aliens shared images and stories from dozens of worlds they had visited throughout the galaxy. Each planet had unique life forms and civilizations that had developed in completely different ways. The diversity of the universe was overwhelming to the human soldiers. Lieutenant Zephron was particularly interested in human concepts of teamwork and unit cohesion. The way human soldiers supported each other and worked together was unlike anything he had observed in other species. The bonds between teammates seemed almost mystical. Science Officer Kaitara recorded detailed observations about human social behavior and military organization. Her reports to the Galactic Federation would be the first comprehensive study of human civilization and its unique characteristics. The aliens began to understand that human aggressive behavior was actually a sophisticated system of protection and mutual support. What they had initially interpreted as monster-like violence was really advanced tactical coordination designed to keep team members safe. Captain Vexstar was impressed by human leadership structures and the way authority was distributed throughout military units. Human sergeants and corporals showed initiative and decision-making abilities that were rare among other species. The Korean soldiers learned that the galaxy was full of peaceful civilizations that had never experienced the constant warfare that had shaped human history. Most species had evolved past the need for military conflict and resolved disputes through negotiation and compromise. Private Nari found it difficult to imagine a world without the need for soldiers and military protection. The idea that entire civilizations could exist without armies or weapons seemed impossible, but the aliens assured her that most galactic species lived in peace. The exchange of knowledge accelerated as both sides became more comfortable with each other. The aliens shared scientific principles and technological concepts, while the humans demonstrated practical applications and tactical innovations. Sergeant Dong-Su realized that human military training had prepared his species for challenges that most aliens had never faced. The constant pressure of potential conflict had made humans incredibly adaptable and resourceful. The Aliens began to appreciate human determination and refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. This quality was rare among galactic species who usually sought compromise rather than confrontation when faced with difficult situations. Lieutenant Hyo Jun asked about alien philosophy and learned that most species in the galaxy valued harmony and cooperation above individual achievement. The human concepts of competition and personal excellence were unusual in galactic society. The cultural differences created interesting discussions about the nature of progress and civilization. The aliens believed that peaceful cooperation was the highest form of development, while humans saw challenge and conflict as necessary for growth. Private Kyung-ho was fascinated by alien energy systems and propulsion technology, but the aliens were equally interested in human mechanical engineering and the way humans could create complex machines from simple materials. The exchange revealed that both species had developed different solutions to universal problems. Aliens used advanced technology to overcome obstacles, while humans relied on creativity and determination to find alternative approaches. As the days passed, the mutual respect between the two groups continued to grow. The aliens began to see humans as potential allies rather than dangerous primitives, while the humans realized that alien civilization offered knowledge and opportunities beyond their imagination. Friendship that developed in the Korean forest would become the foundation for a relationship that would change both species forever. The misunderstanding that had brought them together had evolved into a partnership based on mutual respect and shared values. The revelation that changed everything came during their third week of cultural exchange. Captain Vexstar had been receiving encrypted messages from the Galactic Federation that he had not shared with the human soldiers. The news was too important and too dangerous to keep secret any longer. The alien captain gathered both his crew and the Korean soldiers around a portable holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of the local galaxy. The image was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, showing hundreds of star systems and the civilizations that inhabited them. Lieutenant Zephron pointed to a dark region on the star map where several systems showed no signs of life or activity. These were worlds that had once been home to thriving civilizations but were now empty and lifeless. The cause of their destruction was moving closer to Earth. Captain Vexstar explained that the Galactic Federation had been monitoring Earth because their long-range sensors had detected signs of rapid technological advancement. Human radio and television broadcasts had been picked up by Federation monitoring stations. Decades ago, the Federation had been preparing to make formal contact with humanity when their deep space scouts detected something far more dangerous moving through the galaxy. The Void Seekers were a nomadic race that conquered and destroyed civilizations for resources and territory. Science Officer Kaitara activated additional displays that showed the path of destruction the Void Seekers had carved through the galaxy. Over the past century, they had wiped out dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings. Their technology was advanced and their methods were brutal. The alien crew had been sent to Earth to evaluate human potential as either allies or targets. The Federation needed to know if humanity could help defend against the Void Seekers or if Earth would need to be evacuated before the invasion fleet arrived. Sergeant Dong-soo felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders as he realized that his small unit had accidentally become humanity's first contact team. The decisions they made in this Korean forest could determine the fate of the entire human species. The aliens explained that the Void Seekers specifically targeted developing civilizations because they believed younger species were easier to conquer and control. They had never encountered a species like humans who combined advanced technology with such fierce defensive capabilities. Lieutenant Hyo Jun asked how much time they had before the Void Seekers arrived, and the answer was both reassuring and terrifying. The invasion fleet was still several years away, but their advanced scouts were already probing the outer edges of the solar system. Private Nari wanted to know why the Federation had not contacted Earth sooner, and Captain Vexstar explained that galactic law required extensive observation before making contact with new species. The process usually took decades to ensure peaceful integration. The Korean Soldiers realized that their training exercises had accidentally provided the aliens with detailed information about human military capabilities. The sounds and tactics that had frightened the alien observers were actually demonstrations of exactly what the Federation needed to know. Corporal Minho asked about the strength of the Void Seekers and learned that they had never been defeated in direct combat. Their strategy was to overwhelm peaceful civilizations with superior technology and numbers. Most species surrendered rather than face complete destruction. The aliens had been prepared to recommend evacuation of Earth until they witnessed human military organization and tactical abilities. The Federation had evacuation ships ready, but Captain Vextar was beginning to think that humans might be able to fight back. Private Kyung-ho wanted to know about alien weapons and defenses, but learned that most Federation species had never developed military technology beyond basic security systems. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that the arts of war had been almost forgotten. The revelation brought urgency to their cooperation that had not existed before. What had started as a friendly cultural exchange was now a desperate preparation for interstellar war. The human soldiers found themselves thrust into a role they had never imagined. Science Officer Kaitara began sharing Federation intelligence about Void Seeker tactics and technology. The enemy used massive ships with energy weapons that could destroy cities from orbit. Their ground forces were equipped with personal shields and advanced armor. The aliens were amazed by human concepts of asymmetric warfare and guerrilla tactics. These were completely unknown concepts in galactic civilization, where conflicts were usually resolved through negotiation or overwhelming technological superiority. Sergeant Dong-Su realized that human military history might provide the key to defeating an enemy that had never faced serious resistance. The constant warfare that had shaped human civilization had taught lessons that the peaceful galaxy had never learned. The Korean soldiers began to understand that their species might be unique in the galaxy in ways they had never imagined. The qualities that made humans effective warriors were rare among the stars and might be exactly what was needed to stop the Void Seekers. Lieutenant Zephron asked about human willingness to fight against impossible odds and was told that giving up was simply not an option for most humans. The concept of surrender was understood but rarely accepted when core values were threatened. The aliens learned that human military training emphasized adaptability and initiative in ways that were unknown in their own peaceful cultures. Federation military forces followed strict protocols, but human soldiers were taught to improvise and overcome obstacles. Private Sujin established communication with higher levels of Korean military command, and soon the forest clearing became the center of the most important strategic planning session in human history. Government officials and military leaders joined the discussion. The weight of the situation became clear as both species realized that they were facing a threat that could destroy not just Earth but the entire network of peaceful civilizations that made up the Galactic Federation. Captain Vextar made the decision to formally request that Earth be invited to join the Federation as a military ally rather than a junior member. The human contribution to galactic defense could be invaluable if properly organized and equipped. The alien crew began preparing detailed reports about human capabilities that would be transmitted to Federation headquarters. The peaceful galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most valuable allies were the ones who had never forgotten how to fight. The Korean soldiers found themselves in the unprecedented position of being humanity's first ambassadors to an alien civilization. They were no longer just soldiers but representatives of their entire species in a conflict that would determine the fate of countless worlds. The forest that had witnessed their first misunderstanding was now the site of planning sessions that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The sounds that had once terrified the aliens were now recognized as the battle cry of a species that refused to surrender. The final preparation for the approaching threat brought both species together in ways that neither had imagined possible. The Korean forest had become the headquarters for the most important military alliance in galactic history as human soldiers and alien officers worked side by side. Private Nari found herself teaching advanced tactical concepts to alien military advisors who had traveled from across the galaxy to learn from human expertise. Her insights into asymmetric warfare and defensive positioning were being incorporated into Federation battle plans. The aliens' peaceful nature had made them vulnerable to the Void Seekers' aggressive tactics, but human military knowledge offered new possibilities for resistance. Captain Vextar watched as his crew learned concepts that had never existed in their civilization. Lieutenant Heo Jun became the first human to visit an alien spacecraft. When he was invited aboard the Federation command ship that had arrived to coordinate defense preparations, the technology was overwhelming, but the crew treated him with respect and curiosity. The command ship was massive beyond human comprehension, with corridors that stretched for miles and chambers that could hold thousands of beings. The artificial gravity systems and environmental controls maintained perfect conditions for dozens of different species. Science Officer Kaitara introduced Lieutenant Hyo Jun to the Federation War Council, where military leaders from across the galaxy had gathered to plan their defense against the Void Seekers. The diversity of species was amazing, but they all shared the same determination to protect their worlds. The human concepts of guerrilla warfare and strategic deception were completely foreign to galactic military thinking, but the alien commanders quickly recognized their potential effectiveness against a technologically superior enemy. Sergeant Dong-Su found himself briefing senior Federation officers on human tactical doctrine and military organization. The aliens were fascinated by concepts like unit cohesion, command structure, and the willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. The Korean soldiers began training alien personnel in combat techniques that their species had never needed to develop. The peaceful galaxy was learning that sometimes survival required more than advanced technology and good intentions. Private Kyung-ho worked with alien engineers to adapt human military tactics for space warfare. The challenge was enormous, but the combination of human creativity and alien technology was producing innovative solutions that neither species could have developed alone. The aliens were amazed by human refusal to accept defeat even when facing overwhelming odds. Corporal Minho explained that humans had always faced impossible challenges and had learned to find ways to overcome them through determination and ingenuity. The Federation provided humans with access to advanced materials and energy systems that transformed their military capabilities. Human weapons and equipment were upgraded using alien technology while maintaining the reliability and effectiveness that made them superior. Captain Vextar learned to appreciate the human philosophy of never giving up. When Science Officer Kaitara asked why humans continued fighting even when victory seemed impossible, the answer was simple but profound: because surrender was not an option. The alien crew began to understand that human military culture was based on values that transcended individual survival. The concepts of honor, duty, and sacrifice for others were rare in the galaxy, but provided strength that technology alone could not match. Private Sujin established communication networks that linked Earth military forces with Federation defense systems. The integration of human and alien technology created capabilities that neither species possessed alone. The combined force that emerged from their cooperation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human tactical expertise enhanced by alien technology created a military alliance that could challenge the Void Seekers in ways that had never been possible before. Lieutenant Zephron found himself adopting human military customs and traditions as he worked alongside Korean soldiers. The alien officer began to understand why humans formed such strong bonds with their teammates and how these relationships enhanced combat effectiveness. The training programs that developed in the Korean forest became the model for military cooperation throughout the Federation. Human instructors traveled to other worlds to teach defensive tactics while alien technology enhanced human capability. Sergeant Dong-Su realized that the encounter in the forest had changed both species forever. The aliens had learned that survival sometimes required strength and determination, while humans had discovered their place in a vast galactic community. The Federation formally invited Earth to join as a full member with primary responsibility for military defense. The peaceful galaxy had found protectors who understood that freedom was worth fighting for. Private Nari stood beside Captain Vexstar as they watched the first joint human alien military exercise. The coordination between species that had met as enemies now demonstrated the power of cooperation and mutual respect. The sounds that had once terrified the aliens now represented hope for the future. The roars that had seemed like monsters were actually the voice of a species that refused to bow to tyranny. The word reload had become a battle cry for freedom. Throughout the galaxy, the Korean soldiers found themselves at the center of a transformation that would reshape galactic civilization. The military skills that had seemed primitive to advanced aliens were now recognized as essential for survival. The forest clearing where they had first met became a monument to the power of understanding and cooperation. Two species that had misunderstood each other completely had become allies in the fight for freedom and justice. As the first void seeker scouts approached the solar system, they encountered something they had never faced before: a united force of human determination and alien technology that refused to surrender. The galaxy had found its defenders. The alliance that began with a misunderstanding in a Korean forest had become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. The sounds of human military exercises were no longer frightening, but inspiring as they represented the voice of species that would never give up. Lieutenant Hyo-jun and Science Officer Kaitara worked together to coordinate the defense of Earth and the Federation. Worlds, the friendship that had developed between individual soldiers had grown into a partnership that would protect countless civilizations. The story that began with aliens thinking humans were monsters ended with both species united in their determination to protect freedom throughout the galaxy. The roars that had once caused fear now inspired hope as the sound of allies who would never surrender. Captain Vexstar and Sergeant Dong-Su stood together looking up at the stars that no longer seemed distant and cold but filled with friends and allies who shared their values. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most fearsome sounds came from the most loyal friends. The misunderstanding that had brought them together had become the foundation for a partnership that would change the fate of countless worlds. The Korean forest had witnessed the birth of an alliance that would echo through the stars for generations to come.